Hi, I'm Margaret, and welcome to Garden School. Well, now it is just on the verge of October. The other day, somebody asked me, should I plant a cover crop? And I wanted to talk a little bit today about what a cover crop is and why we might want to plant it, even if we have a small space in a small garden. Let's go take a look. Now we know that through the growing season, the plants are taking their nutrients from the soil and producing some produce for us or flowers for us, and we love that and we're so glad for it. But they can also deplete the soil of the nutrients that are needed for the next year's crop. So a cover crop is something you can do in the wintertime once the summer crop is out and done, and you take it out and then you plant a crop that will grow into the fall and through the winter. And it does need to be turned under or have it die down in the spring before you plant. Now, we know that one of the important elements for plants is nitrogen. And nitrogen happens to be the most abundant element that there is. Our atmosphere has 78% nitrogen. Well, wouldn't you think that plants would have enough? Well, see, there's a problem with that. Nitrogen in its natural state is a gas, and the plants can't absorb that. So it has to come into a form that the plants can absorb, and that's where bacteria come into play. Cool. Now, there are lots of bacteria and other organisms that just live in our soil, and many of them are quite beneficial for us. Now, there are some bacteria called rhizobacteria that form a symbiotic relationship with roots of plants, and those are the ones that transfer or change the elemental nitrogen, the gas form that's in the spaces within the soil, into a form of nitrates or nitrites or ammoniums that the plants can absorb. Thank you, bacteria, beneficial bacteria, for doing that for us and for the plants. Now, about the cover crops, I went to the nursery and I found several kinds of things that you can plant at this time of year that will grow into the fall, through the winter, and then very early spring. Before you do your planting, you want to get that crop down. A lot of them are grasses like wheatgrass, winter rye, barley, or even oats. I've chosen, well, I'll show you what I've chosen in just a minute. The other thing is legumes. Certain legumes, like clovers of certain kinds, are very, very good at fixing the nitrogen and bringing it into the soil and making it available for spring crops. This is the one I chose, what they call the garden cover crop. And you see it has some grasses. It's got rye, and then it has some legumes, the common vetch, the clover, the peas, and it also has some buckwheat in there, which is a very short season cover crop that you can do. And this is what I'm going to do, and they've got the prescribed rate of application, so you'll have to do a little math to figure out what your square footage is of the area that you want to have your cover crop. Okay, so what does a cover crop actually do besides hopefully bring some nutrients into the soil for the spring crops we're going to plant? Well, yes, that does it. The bacteria should be present in the soil, and they will help the legumes especially fix nitrogen that will be available. The greens and stuff of the ryegrass and of the grasses, that's nitrogen itself, and will go back into the soil in the spring. The way I'm going to treat this is just by digging it in. It's a small area. I'm just going to pull it, turn it over, and then wait several weeks before my beginning of planting. So I'll do this pretty early, probably March, to get things going. Now, another thing that a cover crop does is to help reduce the leaching of the existing nutrients into the subsoil and out of your bed or container. That, in the Pacific Northwest, you know, we have so much rain, and other places too. but in the winter we really have a lot of rain, and leaching of nutrients can become a problem. So that will help. Just the physical part of a plant on top of the ground will help to reduce the impact of rain falling on the soil. Something we don't really think about, the power of a raindrop, but that's what will happen too. And then something else that I read was that even plants like calendula flowers, those beautiful flowers that we see coming up all over the place, calendula will love to grow in cool temperatures. And so by adding those, they have a kind of a pretty structured plant. If you have those in your area, you could leave those in over the winter, and that may actually help reduce the impact of rain on your soil. Well, I'm going to sprinkle the seeds that I have in with that other mix and see what happens. So let's take a look. So I've applied my seeds here, and I'm just going to use my little tool to kind of cover them a little bit. They're not going to be perfectly covered, of course, and but that's okay. Just get this going here. I'll work it in a little bit, not too deep, but now of course I've put some food here for little rodents and lovely birds to come. What I'm going to do is put row cover over this to protect it so that these seeds have a chance to get germinated. So there we go. I've covered it with row cover, and I'm securing it down with some stones because the wind is going to want to try to lift that up and move that around. And I'm also going to be coming up occasionally to check it out. Gotta cover this part right here because the little guy's going to want to sneak in there and get some seeds. There we go. And I would expect that we might have some germination in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, if it's going to be super dry, I will want to water. The cloth will permit the rain to come through, and also the sun. So there we go. So there we go. A small area in a vegetable garden with a winter cover crop planted. Well, I hope you're able to consider something like that, even if you just have a small area that you want to add nutrition to, also protect the integrity of the soil and improve the integrity of the soil during the winter. Well, there's always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.